Anthony Lyons is the director of the Community Redevelopment Agency for the City of Gainesville. Mr. Lyons was awarded the Chamber of Commerce's Innovation Advocate for 2010 award for his contributions to Gainesville's innovation and economic development finance initiatives. Prior to Anthony's arrival in Gainesville, he worked in Claremont, New Hampshire as the Planning and Development Director. In this capacity, he was responsible for more than $100 million in economic development projects, from the recruitment of a small fly fishing manufacturer to a $250 million computer company. His work has been awarded 2 International Economic Development Awards. Anthony founded 2 technology-oriented companies in the early 1990s. He founded one of the first phone card companies in the U.S. and then followed that with the founding of one of the first gift card companies, the product being the plastic cards that have now replaced paper gift certificates. His work with these cards won an international award for Best Retail Card. He is an accomplished triathlete and considers himself a food aficionado. Anthony is married to Wendy Shames, and they have a son, Asher. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you.
The Community Redevelopment Agency, the whole topic of CRAs, as they are known, has been talked about a lot lately. We've got one of the smaller municipalities in Alachua County considering a CRA. So I thought this would be a good time to get you on the show. Why don't we start by just giving our viewers an idea of what a Community Redevelopment Agency is?
Well, Redevelopment Agency was put into place back in 1981 in this community because the Commission and community, I think, felt that there was a need to revitalize particular neighborhoods in the city. In the downtown is where it really all started, and from there we have progressed into other neighborhoods, and I think it's working quite well right now.
I want to get a little bit into the funding, because I find there's some confusion there, certainly on my part, but as I've been looking into this, it's become clear. Where exactly does the money come from? And I know that both the city and the county are involved in that. Can you explain
Sure.
that?
The most basic way to describe it is that the Hampton Inn across from the county building was once a parking lot. It had very little value. In fact, there was no tax money being collected on that property. The Redevelopment Agency purchased the property essentially from the city, found a developer, and now you have a multi-million-dollar facility, hotel, and conference area and retail on that property.
And they're paying taxes.
They're paying taxes now. There were no taxes before, now there are taxes. So that's called tax increment. So that increment is segregated from other city monies and used solely for redevelopment. The Redevelopment Agency collects both the city and the county portion of those taxes, not the school board, not the stormwater, not the fire assessment, just the city and county portion. And then we get then a portion of that. So essentially when there's increase in value from a property over what it was, because of redevelopment, that money comes back into the Redevelopment Agency to pay for other kinds of things, a depot park, a road construction project, an economic development effort, whatever it may be.
Anthony, just to drill down a little bit more on that subject. So there was a time when the CRA began, and whatever was being collected in the area was kind of looked at, assessed. So it didn't get all of the taxes. It got the increment above that. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
When you start a redevelopment area, there are no revenues coming to the Redevelopment Agency because there's no increment. You set the base value of all those properties in an area.
Right.
So a house that was assessed for $100,000 is still $100,000, and so there's no increment. If that house got rebuilt, got torn down, made into multifamily, there would be some increment attached with it, and that would be the money that we would then segregate and collect for the Redevelopment Agency.
And to be clear, this is not a tax increase. This is just the natural kind of, with improvements comes higher valuations.
Yes.
So it's still the same money that would be collected. It's just the targeting of this money that changes.
Yes. It's targeted just to this area. And then this area spends almost 75% or 75 cents on every dollar back into the area that we serve. So the area in the downtown, as an example, we get the money in our trust fund and spend it right into the neighborhood that's collected. As an example, again, the Hampton Inn, that money that's collected will be spent within a half-mile range of that particular project, and that's how it works with all of our districts.
Speaking of districts, can you, we've got lots of great graphics that you've provided us that we'll be showing the folks, but what are the CRAs in the City of Gainesville?
So we have 4 areas. One that we're in right now is the downtown area. It's generally the core downtown area down to Depot Park and a little bit down University Avenue to about Waldo. Then we have the east side, which takes up a good part of the east side, going down towards G-Tech, the incubator, down University Avenue a little bit, and then down Waldo Road, which now incorporates part of the county fairgrounds. And then around the university, College Park and University Heights neighborhoods, and then the 5th Avenue and Pleasant Street neighborhoods. It's about 5 square miles, less than 10% essentially of the city land.
And how does the structure work? I know that the City Commission kind of wears 2 hats. Sometimes they meet as the City Commission, but then there's also an occasion where they meet as the CRA, is that correct?
That's correct. So by law, we have our board of directors is the City Commission.
Right.
And then Russ Blackburn, the city manager, acts as our executive director, and then he hires me and in turn staff to help oversee the operations of the CRA. For each of the areas, we have advisory boards. We work with them on strategic planning, project development, some project design, certainly budgeting, and then that flows up to the CRA board, acting as our board, not as the commission. 2 separate meetings. We have a separate board chair, vice chair, things of that sort, so it's really handled very, very differently.
Yeah. And each area has an advisory board. Actually, in a previous lifetime, I sat on the Downtown Redevelopment Advisory Board when I was working at a nonprofit agency.
We'll take you back.
Okay. I'm not sure you want me. So what are the approved uses of CRA dollars? Is it wide open? Are there only certain categories that are appropriate, or how does that work?
Sort of wide net, if you will, is to eliminate slum and blight. That can be done through housing development, through economic development efforts, through infrastructure improvements, through park improvements, through recruiting businesses, through all sorts of methods. And so we take an area, we work a very comprehensive planning effort to get to street by street what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and then project development happens over a 3-year period. And then we build a whole lot of things or have other people build those kinds of things for us. So it's done in lots of different ways. But everything has to be in the plan, has to be in the strategic plan, and then has to be budgeted. And it's all out in the public, and we do everything really with the community.
Now, you mentioned slum and blight. That was an original kind of, I'm kind of backtracking here a little bit,
Sure.
but from what I recall, there was kind of this phenomena in the United States where people were kind of abandoning their core downtowns and their central cities, and that was a primary motivation for CRAs, wasn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, downtowns and the cores, because of outward sprawl to a degree, has contributed to that, but that's not the only reason. Right. I mean, things changed, malls developed, downtowns then couldn't figure out how to compete, and then governments and other people went through urban renewal back in the 60s and 70s where they decided to tear down a lot of buildings and think that would help out, and that really didn't help out. And I think now it's come full circle where people realize that the downtowns can be great. They don't need to compete with malls or strip centers or things of that sort, and they can coexist very, very well. And the two are not competitive. There are different experiences for both. And downtowns and urban areas just need to understand that and need to deal with that and not place blame for why things happen, but embrace it and then make things happen much better, which is what's happened here in the Gainesville. The amount of development happened in the last 5 years has really been incredible, and it's not because of anything other than people wanting to invest in the downtown area.
Right. Yeah, I've been in the downtown since the, I guess early 80s. I've watched what's happened here, and it's really been incredible. Before we leave the kind of the nuts and bolts and get into some of the exciting projects that you've been involved in, can you kind of walk us through how a decision is made in terms of you know, and I know you have many different categories, so you can just take one of them, but, you know, kind of how does it start? How does a business get involved, or a business, or, you know, prospective business or an existing business? How are decisions made on where the funding goes?
Well, as I started to talk about earlier, it's a fairly comprehensive effort that we put into place, a strategic planning effort that we actually got awarded the American Planning Association Best Neighborhood Planning Award, which doesn't mean anything other than I think we got it right. So we look at an area, we almost put it in quadrants. We work with our boards and looking at almost every building, every house, every street, every public improvement, every park, and try to chart out what we think is necessary, and then work with our board on essentially a 3-year roadmap. And then we take that, and then we work on our budget, and then the first year is designing that, the second year is essentially building it. So plan it, design it, and then build it in those kind of 3-year increments. An example may be in the Porter's neighborhood, where we're building a road right now, which is not just a roadway, it's through Porter's. The infrastructure had been really pretty limited for many, many years and kind of old, and so we spent a few years with the particular GRU planning out which roadway to construct, which we did now. It also coincided with Innovation Square, and GRU in particular was able to upgrade the water main there in a fairly comprehensive way. So it not only helps the neighborhood, it'll help future development and all the economic development efforts that we're part of in Innovation Square, so it really helps in double fashion.
Innovation Square, for those who don't know, is the UF facility that's being built on the former Alachua County General Hospital. Is that what it was called? AGH, yeah.
It generally relates to that area where AGH formerly was, and that surrounding land. And the University of Florida has been really taking a leadership role in planning that area and working with the community, and we'll be unveiling some plans in the not too distant future about what that area can hold, which is pretty massive.
Is that part of the downtown CRA, or is that part of the College Park?
College Park.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And I just want to make sure I've covered all the bases in terms of the details here. How long does it last? When did the downtown, for example, I believe you said downtown was the first CRA.
Right.
When did that start, and how long does it go, and how is that determined?
They're a minimum of 30 years, and then if you update the plan or have new objectives or don't meet the criteria for eliminating the slum and blight, if you were, then you can have them go on for a little bit of time. Many of them, the plans were updated back in the 2000, 2005 time frame, and so they should be going on for quite some time. But if there are certain areas that need to be looked at in a little different fashion, plans need to be rewritten, we also do that. In fact, all of our redevelopment plans have gone through a complete makeover over the past year, and we've rewritten every one of them, and so.
So this is really a major long-term commitment for these governments.
It can be. I mean, again, if you eliminate all the problems that you started with, it's not a good thing to start a CRA. I mean, it means that there is some problem that's not being taken care of.
Right.
So the job is to essentially make sure that you've done a good job in eliminating these problems. In some of our districts, areas have been revitalized to a degree, and other areas really are not even close. And so even within districts, some streets may look like they're fine, but if you really look at the wide area, there's still a lot of work to be done.
And I'm sure that the tax increment in certain CRAs rises much more rapidly than the tax increment in other CRAs, just by the very nature of where they are. And
sure. We are only as successful from a revenue side if redevelopment occurs. And so when you start with zero money, you have to make sure that redevelopment efforts happen, and so the properties either change hands and get redeveloped, or the values go up because there's no money to do anything. And so it takes a very long time generally for this kind of thing to happen. And a couple of them are really coming into their own now, and there's money to now encourage even more development and build more infrastructure and help more economic development efforts. And some, we're a few years behind on that level.
I know you recently got some new digs. You've got a new building that was built recently.
I've heard.
In the middle. Yes. I'll let you know where it is after the show. They've been keeping that from you. And you did it right in the middle of a CRA district,
yes.
Which was certainly an appropriate action to take. Where is the new building?
It's on Northwest 5th Avenue, a few blocks from Santa Fe College and a few blocks from University of Florida. Fifth Avenue, historically a main commercial thoroughfare for African American community that had really been blighted for many, many years. And as a redevelopment agency, one of our jobs is to encourage redevelopment to happen. Some of those areas, you need to take the initiative and take the lead to do it, which is what we did. Mm-hmm. We also rebuilt the roadway at the same time and increased the infrastructure and so forth. And I think it's been a big gain for the community at large.
There are, certainly you mentioned the Hampton Inn, which was a good example of a commercial partnership. Your own building was a good example. Is housing an important element of a CRA? I mean, as you're looking at an area like the downtown, does that play into your long-term planning? A kind of a look at what kind of housing you think makes sense in an area or would redevelop an area?
Sure. I mean, different areas require different things. In Pleasant Street, as an example, there were areas which were truly blighted with empty lots or buildings that were not in very good condition that we either rebuilt or built new homes on. Home ownership was particularly important in that community, and so we rebuilt a number of homes and sold them very quickly, or built brand new homes and sold them also very quickly. Mm-hmm. So that kind of housing project will work in that community. In the downtown, it may be a little different. We might encourage a little different kind of involvement. Where Regents Park is, we didn't do much with the buildings themselves, but more with the street and the infrastructure and things of that sort. Mm-hmm. So every project, every section of our district, every street will require a little bit different flexibility to achieve the goal that we have. Altogether, you'll start to notice it, but if you look at them individually, you'll sometimes wonder why this project over this project. But when you look at it in a comprehensive fashion, it's generally almost always very well planned activities.
You know, I'm kind of dying to talk about some of the projects themselves. I think we've covered the nuts and bolts pretty well. Was there anything that you would like to kind of tell the public about the workings, or can I ask you?
The more exciting thing is to see the projects happen. Not to talk about the history, but it's certainly an area that we need to do.
We've done our job with the history. If you don't mind, I'd like to start with some of the downtown things, just because I see them on a daily basis. One project that I found particularly intriguing was the old bus station on the plaza. Tell me about that and how that started and how you ultimately found a tenant for that property. How did that work?
When the McGurn parking garage was built downtown, they had this old gas station that needed to be moved to build that facility. And so it was moved to the plaza and given to the city. The city used it for a number of years as an RTS ticket office. When RTS built the Rosa Parks Center across from Depot Park and GRU, we went to the city manager, essentially said, here's a great building that we think could be wonderful for the plaza. It'll be across from the Hampton Inn, yet to be built, but across from the Hampton Inn, and the two can work in a great fashion together. So we went about redeveloping that property. We rehabilitated the building and got it.
Great job with it too. It's just a beautiful old building.
And then found two young women wanting to start a local restaurant, and we worked with them. Built out the interior, and then it's been up and running ever since. I think it's been wildly successful. Mm-hmm. If you go out on a Friday night to see the bands play, you'll see it overflowing, or farmers market, and then other times for lunch and dinner. It's really it's one of my favorite projects. It's very small, but it has a great impact, which is very, very good. In some places, they call it urban acupuncture.
Well, as a matter of fact, just I guess two weeks ago, I saw a little bit of Little Jake and the Soul Searchers while sitting on the kind of raised area as part of that cafe. I think I'm going to jump around from districts so I don't pay too much attention to just one. Can you tell me about the A. Quinn Jones house in the Pleasant Street district? That's an amazing old place.
Sure. Mr. Jones is a well-known educator in the city that lived on Northwest 7th Avenue. And we initiated an effort essentially to turn his house into a museum and then as a trailhead for cultural activities throughout the neighborhoods. The story hadn't been told and should be told, and it's very important. Mr. Jones has done so much for the state of Florida and this city that his home and he are now listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which does not happen. There's very few sites in the city with a man or woman, for that matter, that has been listed on the National Registry, and so his house represents that. So we've worked with some museum folks, and now we're fundraising to build out the interior. We've built the exterior out, and then we'll start that sometime this summer to start fundraising. And it's really a wonderful project and something that needs to happen. Again, economic development, infrastructure, cultural, parks, housing, every neighborhood has different kind of techniques to help revitalize it. And bringing people into a neighborhood to see the history is a very, very good thing. And museums are very well known to bring in tourists and people into the city, and we'll be doing that as well in that particular neighborhood.
I had the pleasure not too long ago of working with a force of nature whose name is Vivian Filer.
Yes.
And I know in the East Side CRA, the Cotton Club project is speaking of cultural projects, has been an amazing process to watch. CRA has been involved in that, correct?
We have been, more on the side, but it's one that we've helped encourage. We've funded a few of their activities and building projects, and it's again taking this old structure and making it livable again for cultural activities is wonderful. It'll bring people to that part of the city. It's around the corner from the bed and breakfast. It's less than half a mile from the Depot Avenue. Depot Road will be revitalized, and so it's an important connector on the rails trail as well. It's really a wonderful project, and Ms. Filer can do anything and does do everything.
She sure does. In the College Park area, you've done so many projects in that area, and we already mentioned the Innovation Square project. That's part of that CRA, correct?
Yes.
The Second Avenue project, did that cross CRAs? Is that downtown and College Park, the improvements that have been done?
It is, and we worked on a team, if you will, with the University of Florida and the City Public Works Department to help fund and rebuild that, and it was very successful. We have, over the past 5 years, rebuilt in some fashion 3.5 miles worth of roadways, and we have about 4.5 miles worth of roadways that we're currently under design or about to start construction on. So infrastructure improvements are really a pretty massive undertaking for us, and we're about to start 3 or 4 more roadway projects right now that will tie into Innovation Square and some of these other neighborhoods, all the while laying groundwork for redevelopment to occur.
I grew up in just outside of Washington, D.C., so negotiating roundabouts was just a normal part of our daily life up there. I love the roundabouts on 2nd Avenue. It just feels so seamless when you travel that corridor. Gosh, there's so many projects you've been involved in. You mentioned roadway projects. That 5th Avenue streetscaping and roadway improvement and sidewalk improvement is just a beautiful project. It just transformed that road.
You know, the aesthetics look nice, and they're very, very important. It gets rid of the visual blight, but underneath it, the water and sewer, the new fiber optics, the water for fire, I mean, none of that infrastructure had been upgraded in a very long time, and neighborhoods cannot revitalize without having upgraded infrastructure. Even the building that we built on 5th Avenue didn't have enough fire flow from the water, and so the rest of 5th Avenue will undergo the same transformation. Stormwater will be upgraded, and just a lot of these neighborhoods that have been blighted for a very long time need this kind of upgrade. And so at the end of the day, it may look good, but the real work and the real expense is all the spaghetti underneath the ground that takes a long time to rebuild and is very, very important for all the projects.
I'd be happy for you to use this occasion to put in a shameless plug for a tenant. I understand there's a new building with some space available in that area.
On 5th Avenue we have a building and there's a small tenant space there. We've had a large number of people looking at it, but we're really trying to select the right tenant for that space. Right. It's an area that can ill afford to have some kinds of tenants, and so we've been working with some, and we've gotten fairly close with some, but we're always looking for good ideas, and we'll take our time to make sure it's the right kind of tenant for the neighborhood, and we've said that to the neighborhood, and we'll continue.
And I'll use the downtown just as an example. We've kind of mentioned infrastructure improvements and some of the larger projects like Hampton Inn and the Innovation Square that you've worked with. One area that I think is important is how you work with existing businesses within a CRA, and I know the facade grant has done a great deal of has made a great deal of improvement in the downtown area that I'm certainly aware of. How does the facade grant work? Who is eligible for applying for that?
So we have a facade grant program in all of our districts. And generally, again, it's to upgrade the facilities that they're in, usually just the facade of the building. It can include some landscaping, some signage, and things of that sort. It's to make a better presentation to the street and make it look like it's a business that takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. So in some districts, we have a 50% match where they can apply to do tens of thousands of dollars worth of work that we may match to help out. We also have a long list of economic development finance programs that we have recently put out there. Small business lending programs, SBA lending programs. We're in the process of working with the community on starting a seed fund. We're looking at putting together infrastructure funds. So everything from a sewer pipe to the building itself to what goes inside the building are all the kinds of efforts that we're working with now. It's important to do infrastructure. It's important for us, which we have done for the past number of years, to help get the buildings built. But if the companies themselves don't come in and are not recruited and don't flourish, right, then the rest of it may not matter in the end. And so we have put a lot of time and some resources into shifting some focus. Our bread and butter will always be infrastructure and sort of the conditions that we've done recently, but making sure that businesses are here in the city and flourishing is really quite important. It could be a retailer like the Lunchbox. Could be a retailer in a traditional downtown, or it could be a high-tech business that we'll work with, and we are working with now.
We're just about out of time, but I didn't want to let you slip away without at least touching on the Depot Park project. I mean, that is such a transformational kind of project for that area. How is the CRA involved in that?
Well, Depot Park will be, I think, Gainesville's Central Park. It is about 35 acres. Right now it is being cleaned up by GRU. It's pretty well contaminated. And then the CRA is about to rebuild the old train depot this summer, which will be spectacular when it's done. Yeah. So we're sort of overseeing the project in its entirety and then working with people like GRU or Public Works on their pieces. They certainly control them, but we help maintain the vision. We have done the overall design. And at the end of the day, we'll be the ones building the park and all the park amenities that you see. It's a wonderful project. It's really going to help shift and expand the downtown in a meaningful way and take care of what's down there. And it goes right through what we're generally calling the Power District, which includes the area that GRU is leaving, which will be redeveloped into a mix of uses. And so the downtown itself is really going to continue to move on in a really great fashion, and we're quite happy and proud of the work we've done thus far.
For those who haven't heard, the Cade Museum will also locate at Depot Park. Is that correct?
Yes, we've been working with the Cade Museum now for a number of years, originally just to help site where it would be, and they have chosen Depot Park. It would be located essentially on South Main Street, that portion of Depot Park. Right. And they're in the process of fundraising now and working with us on the footprint of the museum. It really will help transform not just Depot Park in that area, but the city in general. It's a very innovative city, a lot of things happening here, a lot of creative folks, and then to be able to have that and house it in a place that represents that in the city is really wonderful.
Well, I certainly encourage folks in the city to get to know you, get to know what you do. Your place is right there on Fifth Avenue on a beautiful new street, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation.